Tonight, Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court confirmation is suddenly not a lock. The Senate Judiciary Committee is about to weigh dueling testimonies. It's the judge's word against a California professor named Christine Ford. They are set to clash at a public hearing next Monday, which, by the way, almost didn't happen. Michael Avenatti joins me now. He's Stormy Daniels' attorney. You know that. No stranger to filing cases that harken back more than a decade. So let's start, first of all, with thanking you for being here. Appreciate it, Counselor. It's an important point to make. The idea of, well, this was so long ago, we'll never know. Cases all the time are about things that happened long ago. It's not just about time. It's about corroboration and what you can find to help tell the story that indicates the truth. Fair point?
I think that is fair, Chris. But, I mean, this is a very serious matter. We're talking about a lifetime appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. And you're talking about basically instilling Judge Kavanaugh as, you know, I use the term a king, because these individuals that are put on the court basically are kings. I don't think a lot of people have an appreciation for how much power that they have and possess for decades after having been on the court. And my view, Chris, is that if the president was smart, if he wasn't so arrogant, he would see the writing on the wall and he would pull this nomination immediately and
pull the nomination.
Pull the nomination. Absolutely. Look, there's a lot of qualified judges and attorneys in the United States that can fill this role. My understanding is that Dr. Ford has already passed a lie detector test. If Donald Trump was smart, and he's not, he would pull the nomination and he would move to the next nominee on the list and start over.
You know, it's an interesting point, because he's actually, the president, been getting some credit headed in the opposite direction, that given so much politicization of this already by the senators involved, he actually sounded somewhat reasonable today when he said this.
You would have thought certainly that she would have brought it up at the meeting, not wait till everything's finished and then have to start a process all over again. But with all of it being said, we want to go through a full process.
At least he was saying what a lot of Republicans weren't saying, that, yeah, you've got to vet this. You've got to go through it. They have to be heard. You know, at least he was offering that, because this testimony we're going to see on Monday, Michael, was not a given. You know, as you know, Cornyn and others were saying he didn't want to reward the Democrats for what they are calling like a Hail Mary pass. What do you make of that suggestion, that the Democrats held this until the last moment?
Well, I don't know all the circumstances surrounding how long they held it. It seems to be that they held it for a couple months, which raises, in my mind, questions as to why it was held for so long. I think it should have been aired a lot earlier, frankly. I think it's a heck of a risk to hold on to something this explosive until the 11th hour. But again, Chris, I'm going to go back to what I said. There's no need to go forward with this nomination at this stage in light of this accusation, in light of the passage of the lie detector test. Why go through this hearing on Monday? It's going to be an absolute circus show. It's going to hearken us back to 27 years ago. Judge Clarence Thomas hearing, I'm sure you remember it. I remember it. I know there's certain senators on that panel that would like to forget what happened and how much disrespect was shown to Anita Hill at the time. I just think if the president was smart with everything else going on right now, he had to pull the nomination and nominate someone anew.
What does that set, though, as a precedent, that an accusation is enough when you haven't even really proven? Look, I mean, we're on the same page here, I hope, culturally, with Me Too, that you have to give everybody a chance to be heard. You cannot sweep allegations aside because they're uncomfortable or they play to dynamics that we want to protect in the moment. But that said, if you make accusation or allegation the bar of whether or not you stay or go, Michael, what does that set up for the future?
I mean, that's a very good point, Chris, but I think we're beyond that from what I understand relating to the lie detector test being passed, which, of course, is not admissible in a court of law, but lie detector tests are used routinely for law enforcement and security clearances at the highest levels of the federal government. I think it was just last week, in fact, that Vice President Pence was suggesting that lie detector tests be used in connection with ferreting out who wrote the anonymous memo. It's going to be curious as to whether all of a sudden the administration believes that the lie detector test that Dr. Ford passed is unreliable. We're not talking about a mere accusation or allegation. And here's another important point. this isn't going to be adjudicated in 1 day or even 2 days. An accusation of this nature could not be fully adjudicated in that short a period of time before the Senate Judiciary Committee. You would need a couple weeks at a minimum for the presentation of evidence.
Sure.
You'd need more witnesses. You'd need more witnesses called other than Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh.
True.
This would have to go through an extensive process. And to what end? There's other individuals that are more qualified than this judge to sit on the Supreme Court, and his nomination should be pulled.
Well, look, I take your point on that. I do think as a middle ground, they could have given it to the FBI and taken away from the senators, at least give the senators a basis of information for where the questions will be coming from. Otherwise, they're just really going to be shooting in the dark here. And the FBI could have done that. It doesn't seem that they'll be allowed to. The White House could ask them to do it. There hasn't been any move there. We'll see. While I have you, a lot of this is about the politics of perception and what people want to be true. You were a combatant of that recently, not only with the President of the United States, but on Fox News. I want to play a clip of this for people if they didn't see it.
Why dodge the question? Look, you traveled here with policy advisors who've worked on other campaigns to the show tonight.
I have no idea.
I think you'd be ready for a simple question.
I didn't travel here with policy advisors. Can I ask you? Let me ask you a question.
No, I don't think. Why don't you get a TV show and then you can ask me a question? I've asked you a simple question and you're not answering.
Why is it that you don't call Donald Trump the creepy porn president? He's the one that had sex with a 4-month-old son at home with my client without a condom.
Okay, so
but you don't want to acknowledge that.
Hold on.
You don't want to acknowledge
that.
So Tucker Carlson there, obviously a attack dog for the president. He called you the creepy porn lawyer. He was trying to get you to talk about the president, but really it was about the politics of perception. He needs you to be a bad guy because you represent a movement to expose this president as something other than the golden calf that he sees him as. So why'd you go?
Well, I went, Chris, because I consider myself a fighter. I consider myself a fighter for the Democratic Party and a fighter for this nation and the ideals and the rights that are at risk, at severe risk right now in our history. And you can't call yourself a fighter and then duck fights and not go on a show like Tucker Carlson and go toe-to-toe with somebody like that. Look, I was completely disrespected on the show. You've gone toe-to-toe with a number of guests, Kellyanne and others. You've never shown them anything close to that amount of disrespect. And I think Tucker Carlson was shown to be the clown that he was.
Well, you're not going to get an argument from me on that, but there's a difference. And I think it does wind up reflecting back onto what we're going to see on Monday. People aren't open. They're not decent. It's about integrity. And we have to hope that the people who are elected, look, Tucker Carlson gets paid to be exactly what he was in that interview. But the men and women who are going to be sitting on that panel and listening to the testimony on Monday, we put them there for a very different reason. They're not supposed to stoke what is worst about us. They're supposed to bring out what is best, and we'll see if it happens. Michael Avenatti, you get points. You certainly get points for putting your dukes up. That's for sure. And thank you for being on Primetime, as always.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.